Youths Golf Championship from next Thursday, live on Sky Sports.
The three-peat is achieved. An 8th grand final win. That trophy is in familiar hands. It's in the hands of St Helens once again.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long? And wouldn't it be nice to live together?
Sky Mobile sponsors the transfer window on Sky Sports News.
Champions League-bound Newcastle close to taking their summer spending to over £120 million after agreeing a deal to sign Tino Livramento. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show, and it's a busy one. Now, coming up, we've got news on Liverpool target Romeo Lavia. Tottenham agree a deal for a striker, and Josko Gvardiol's transfer to Manchester City has moved a step closer. And we'll take a look at what the future may hold for Birmingham after one of the greatest sports stars of all time, Tom Brady, invests in the club. Right, we've got some breaking news from Brighton. Who's got it?
Yeah, well, it's involving Brighton, as you say, and Moises Caicedo. Now, Brighton say they're not expecting any club to match their valuation of Moises Caicedo this transfer window. Now, the valuation of the midfielder is £100 million or upwards. Yesterday, it emerged on our show last night, Mike, that an unnamed club approached Brighton about a deal for Caicedo. Now, it's understood Brighton have been impressed by his attitude, while speculation about his future intensifies. He won the Player of the Year awards the other night for Brighton. Now, Chelsea's latest bid of £80 million fell well short of what Brighton were asking for, and it was rejected immediately by the club. However, one source says they expect Chelsea to go back in with an improved bid. So an update on Moises Caicedo this afternoon.
OK, that is interesting. But they have agreed a deal, Chelsea, with Brighton on another player, so tell us.
Yes, they've agreed a £25 million deal, Chelsea with Brighton, to sign Brighton's keeper, Robert Sanchez. The fee is inclusive of add-ons and a sell-on clause. Now, Sanchez is now set to undergo a medical, and he'll provide cover and competition for Chelsea's number one, Kepa. If you remember, he was number one last season, Sanchez, and then Roberto De Zerbi putting Jason Steele in goal, and of course Edward Mendy moving to Al Ali earlier this summer, so Chelsea needed a bit more competition in the goalkeeping ranks.
Right, Mark, you know Brighton inside out. Why have they gone for Sanchez?
I think there's a clear reason as to why he was on their radar. Like Michael rightly said, Kepa needed some competition. You know, if you want to challenge for the Premier League and Champions League football and so on and so forth, you're going to need quality all over the pitch and in depth. And Robert Sanchez will certainly add that. But there is probably a key reason as to why Chelsea went for him. You look at their goalkeeping coach, Ben Roberts, who joined Chelsea as a part of Graham Potter's backroom team, became the Brighton and Hove Albion head goalkeeping coach back in 2015 and worked with Sanchez. So there's a clear link there between Brighton and Chelsea. The goalkeeping coach at Chelsea knows the player, understands the player, has been on the training pitch in the dressing room with the player, and therefore it's our information that he was a driving force in bringing Sanchez to Chelsea, a player that they know well. And it's always a big benefit when you understand the player inside and out, bringing him into a new football club and a new surrounding, how he'll adapt, because you've got that insight from having worked with him already. OK, yeah, interesting. Right, Michael. Developments at Newcastle, what's happened?
Yes, this is a player Newcastle and Eddie Howe have been looking at, have wanted for some time, and with reason. He's a very exciting right-back. They're looking to pay around an initial fee of £32 million for Tino Livramento, with further performance-related add-ons on top. Now, we understand Southampton are satisfied that they've received their valuation of Livramento in a package. They believe that could rise to £40 million. Now, last week, we said that Southampton were not offering any discounts on their players despite relegation to the Premier League. More on that, on more of their players this evening, Mike, on our transfer shows. And they've stood firm on their valuations. They rejected a bid of £30 million from Newcastle for several weeks ago. But it does look like He is now heading to St James's Park, and they've already got Harvey Barnes, Sandro Tonali. Eddie Howe knows the player he wants, and it looks like he's getting his latest one.
Yeah, he's getting him, Mark, but is he there as backup or does he play?
He'll play. He'll play. No question about it. Eddie Howe isn't going to bring a player into that football club just to sit on the bench, particularly when you're spending close to £40 million. I think it's important to point out Newcastle have Champions League football next season. They've got 38 Premier League games. They got to the final of the League Cup last season. They're going to play in excess of 50 matches. So therefore, can you expect Kieran Trippier, who is outstanding and has been one of the best in the last 10 years in that position, at 32 years old, to start every single game? No, you can't. He needs competition and he'll need a breather. And
I also see him potentially going left back at times as well, Kieran Trippier, can't he? Because that's an area they...
Yeah, he's done it for England. He could do it for Newcastle. My information is he will play at right back alongside Tino, and they'll both fight out and they'll both chop and change and they'll both play a key part for Eddie Howe next season. I think if you spoke to Eddie Howe right now and said, talk to me about Tino Livramento, the first thing he'd say is, I've just signed a future England international right back. That's how highly I regard him. I believe in him. I've been tracking him for some time. Tino Livramento has played right through the age ranks, under 15 England's, 16, 17s, right through to the 21s as well. So therefore, you're getting a player that's got great pedigree and great experience. He's athletic. He's attack-minded. He's got good technical quality. He's got the ability to get forward. He forms good partnerships as well, and that's something that's key in any Eddie Howe side. He wants to have players that can form partnerships up and down the pitch, and Tino has done that consistently, whether it's at England, at Chelsea or at Southampton. And I think the best thing about this story is that Tino Livramento suffered a hugely, challenging injury at a young age. Just after getting into the team, people were starting to get excited about him. He was out for 392 days before coming back to first-team action. He got back into that Southampton squad at the end of the season, and now he's got his big money move. He'll be hugely excited about this, and at 20 years old, this could be a really exciting player for Newcastle and for Eddie Howe.
Difficult times for Southampton, though, because, Newcastle have just shown that the vultures are circling on their players. Russell Martin spoke about this, spoke about James Ward-Prowse, spoke about Romeo Lavia today, Mark. So what did he actually say?
So, yeah, Russell Martin, I feel a little bit sorry for him. He's gone into a brand new football club. He walks through the door at the beginning and goes, what a squad here. Of course, yes, relegated from the Premier League, but I can see so much potential in every single player. And I can't wait to get on the training pitch and start working with them. But he's very slowly losing players. Now, while Southampton will have these high valuations of their players, they can't stop players leaving when the money comes in. And potentially when you look at Tino, you look at Romeo Lavia and James Ward-Prowse, who we'll go into detail in just a few moments, that could be £120 million, which is not to be sniffed at a side that's just been relegated. Russell Martin was speaking to the media today. He essentially said, look, I can't guarantee that any of these players will still be here after the transfer deadline day shuts. I'd love them to be here, but you can never say never.
That is tough, isn't it, on a manager, particularly given how really strong the Championship is this season. So, Mark just mentioned him there. Where are we with James Ward-Prowse and a possible move?
Well, the information we had, it was a take it or leave it, £30 million offer. West Ham said we'll leave it, but what do we know? We know that David Moyes really wants James Ward-Prowse. He wants some reinforcements now. They've sold Declan Rice. That went on for some time, probably a lot longer than what West Ham and Moyes would have wanted. Let's talk about the player. James Ward-Prowse needs to be in the Premier League. We know he loves Southampton, but we've got well under a year to go now until the European Championships. This is a player who's brilliant at free kicks, set pieces, and will be a real asset to Premier League teams. But what's interesting is that Southampton holding firm. Relegated clubs, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you had a real opportunity to get who you wanted from a team who had been relegated. That's not really the case anymore. These clubs like Southampton and Leicester are wanting to hold firm. They want to get promoted straight back up. And if you'd said to me a year ago that this kind of money, I'd be assuming that Southampton would be in the Premier League this season. They're not. They're in the Championship. But that's where we stand now in terms of deals and fees.
OK, so that's James Ward-Prowse. Where are we with Lavia?
Yeah, another player that's commanding big money and a lot of interest from high-profile clubs because he's got so much quality. It's important to remember as well that when he went from Manchester City to Southampton last summer, within 3 games, Southampton had interest from other Premier League sides. He played 3 matches and already people were talking about his potential. We know that Liverpool's first offer of 34 million plus 4 million in add-ons was rejected. On Monday, Liverpool's second offer, which we understand to be a guaranteed below 40 million with some add-ons, so we think roughly around 45 million pounds, also immediately rejected by Southampton. We understand the Saints are looking for close to in and around 50 million pounds for the youngster. Lavia wants to go to Liverpool. He's interested in going to Liverpool. We also know that there is some interest from Chelsea as well. But it goes back to what Michael was saying there. Southampton have remained firm on all of their players. And Dragan Solak, the owner of the football club, has said, I will only sell at my price. When you're a billionaire and arguably one of the richest men in Serbia, you can do that. And he knows the price of getting back to the Premier League is worth more than potentially selling players now. And to get promoted in a tough championship, you need everyone at the club.
Michael, has Guardiola got Gvardiol?
He's close because he's scheduled to begin a medical by the end of this week. The key always was finalising, agreeing a deal with Leipzig, and now this deal is agreed. How much is City paying? We understand it's 77.6 million. He is some player. He's young, very young for a defender, but he is some player. So I think Manchester City will be looking at this, Mike, and saying, well, yes, it's rather expensive, but this is someone we could have for a long, long time who could build a formidable partnership with Ruben Diaz, and he adds to a long list of excellent Manchester City defenders. So, yeah, big move for them.
Interesting, though, Mark, isn't it? Because he played when City beat Leipzig 7-0 and Erling Haaland scored 5. Interesting that City still go, no, you're the man for us.
I think because Erling Haaland is you know, the greatest striker in world football at the moment, no question about it. So I don't think there's any slight on any defender that concedes 5 goals when you're playing against Erling Haaland. But I think it's his, you know, the other attributes to his game, you know, the ability to play out from the back, the fact that he's young, he's a Croatian international, he can develop as well under Pep Guardiola. You have to remember, Pep is a manager that wants to work with players, he wants to coach players, he wants to improve players. The same as Eddie Howe, for example, at Newcastle. There are, you know, managers that manage and there are managers that coach. And I think that will be the exciting thing for Manchester City and Pep, that they can develop him because he's still so young. And the fact that he'll be training day in, day out with Erling Haaland means he's up against the very best. So imagine what that will do for his development as well.
Exactly. Mark said Haaland, the best in the world. Spurs after a striker, are they getting someone of a similar calibre?
Oh, well, I think this is potentially one for the future. This is a player based in Argentina, plays for Rosario Central, and his name is Alako Velith. He's someone they've looked at for some time. He scored 3 goals in 4 games for Argentina under-20s during the World Cup. There are negotiations between the two clubs about loaning him back for a period as well. More on that as we get it, but that is what we're being told at the moment. But yeah, Spurs looking to the future, of course. I'm expecting them to complete the signing of defender Ashley Phillips. So not only looking for players for the now, and I know Spurs fans are very keen for that to happen, but they're also looking to the future too.
Interesting that you say the striker is for the future, because South American football expert Tim Vickery, not convinced.
I have some doubts here. Vélez is a 19-year-old strapping target man type of centre forward. Now, we've seen quite a few out-and-out goal scorers from Argentina come over to English football in the last few years. Maybe Figueroa at Birmingham, Ferreira at Newcastle, Boselli at Wigan, Caleri at West Ham, Carrillo at Southampton. And as I read out this list of names, you're probably saying who? Because none of them made an impact. That type of player who doesn't offer a great deal apart from goal scoring, coming straight in from South America or from Argentina, that type of Argentine centre forward has consistently struggled in Premier League football.
Should Spurs fans be worried? That type of striker has consistently struggled in Premier League football.
I mean, Tim is a South American football expert. I mean, I'm not. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Spurs have got some excellent scouts. I know Spurs aren't the only club to have looked at him, but As I say, I mean, he's one for the future, so we'll wait and see. And the fact that they're discussing about him going back there potentially on loan tells me. I think when we get Tim on, he's obviously looking at it from a point of view: can this player go straight in and start in a Premier League match? The answer there is probably no, but obviously there's big potential there, I'm sure.
It's something that Brighton have done a lot. Buy players, send them out on loan. They did it with McAllister, for example. Then when they've developed and they've paid smaller fees for them, then they bring them into the first team setup and then they're ready to hit the Premier League. And I think that could be seen in a few years' time as really clever business by Spurs. But again, it's just that let's get in early and see if we can develop him.
And while we move on, Tottenham have discussed the approaches in the way the scouting is done by the likes of Brentford and Brighton. So there will be a lot of players Spurs are looking at who maybe aren't household names, but Moise Caicedo wasn't a year ago. So they might not be household names now, but they might well be in the future.
Absolutely. Any household names on the agenda for defenders for Spurs?
Well, look, this is a glamorous name, Mickey van der Ven. I mean, he'll definitely be sung down the Tottenham High Road if Spurs sign him. I mean, they're in talks with Wolfsburg. There are reports elsewhere that they're advanced. I'm not told that's quite the case just of yet. But what we do know is Tottenham need to bring in a top centre-half ahead of their match against Brentford. They conceded way too many goals last season and they need a bit more at the back, and that's what Ange Postecoglou will be looking at.
We can't talk Tottenham and not say the two words which are Harry Kane. Any developments, anything?
No, it's no developments today. You know, what we've covered this week on, you know, the potential Harry Kane deadline day being the Brentford game, and you know that they're so unofficial, so you know you take them potentially with a pinch of salt. So there's nothing. I mean, Tottenham have a friendly on Sunday against Shakhtar Donetsk at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Ange Postecoglou's first game at home, sold out. You know, a lot of the proceeds go into Shakhtar and the conflict in Ukraine. So
that's good.
Yeah. So and look, what will be interesting, Mike, is like I've said before. You know, Hugo Lloris is going to leave the club. He's the club captain. Ange Postecoglou will have to choose a new club captain ahead of the new season. Of course, with everything going on with Harry Kane at the moment, will that be left to a later date? We'll see.
We will see. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got the rest of the day's transfer news, and that includes a significant deal at Paris Saint-Germain. That and more in a moment. See you. Right, we started with some significant Moises Caicedo news. If you're just joining us, I'm going to get Michael to just tell you again.
Yeah, everyone who's coming back in from work now, because it's a big transfer line, this obviously. It's a player that's dominating our news agenda. It's from Brighton aren't expecting any club to match their valuation of Moises Caicedo this transfer window. I mean, the valuation we've been talking about, about 100 million or above. But yesterday, it emerged that an unnamed club approached Brighton about a deal for Caicedo. Now, it's understood that Brighton have been impressed with his attitude while the speculation intensifies. Chelsea's latest bid of 80 million fell well short of what Brighton were asking for and was immediately rejected by the club. Now, one source says they do expect Chelsea to go back in with an improved bid. But an update there on Moises Caicedo this afternoon.
OK, so, Mark, what does that mean? Does that mean that Brighton are saying to Chelsea, what have you got? Show us your cards.
I think what it shows, first of all, the fact that the player is comfortable at Brighton is an indication as to the environment there that they've got and the fact that he understands unless his valuation is met, he'll be going nowhere. We know that really, officially, Brighton have never put a valuation on Caicedo. There isn't a for sale sign out the front of the stadium saying this is his availability and this is what we want. They want to keep him. They want to build a squad around him. And let's be honest, the fact that Brighton are now playing Europa League football for the first time in the club's history, they want the players to stay there and be a part of this journey. And clearly, Roberto De Zerbi is building something at the football club that is hugely exciting. And I think this shows as well, once again, I keep saying it on every single transfer show, Tony Bloom, the recruitment, A couple of years ago, no one had heard of Moises Caicedo and, he cost them £4 million, give or take. And now he's being bandied around by the media as a player worth in excess of £100 million. So I think that, credit to Brighton once again. Exciting for the club and, interesting to see these developments. But the most important thing to point out, in any transfer deal with any player and any club, things can change like that. One phone call and everything changes.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, before the break, we teased the fact that PSG might be in for a player. So tell us what's going on.
Yeah, it's always interesting when PSG splash the cash, isn't it? Gonzalo Ramos of Benfica. PSG are close to agreeing a deal. We understand that to be 65 million euros plus 15 million euros in add-ons. They're also on the verge of signing Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona as well. And Ramos, people will say, Ramos, why does that name ring a bell? Because he came on for Cristiano Ronaldo in the World Cup.
Yes.
Then scored a hat-trick against Switzerland. He got 27 goals for Benfica last season, only 22 years old. Goes against the grain of what PSG have done in the past, signing experienced superstar Galacticos, going for younger players that they can develop. The big household names go out the door, and let's build a young, exciting squad. Ramos fits into that.
Right, let's whiz through a few others. Michael, Sheffield United got busy today.
Yeah, good news for them. They completed the signing of Austin Trusty from Arsenal for around £5 million. He impressed on loan at Birmingham last season, has signed a 4-year deal for Paul Heckingbottom's side. Now, he was on tour with Arsenal in America, but as we said for the last few days, and Mikel Arteta has told us, his squad is too big, and he described it last week as unsustainable. But that is one out confirmed from Arsenal to Sheffield United.
All right, we're running out of time, so let's whiz through a couple more. I haven't said this for about 15 years. Coventry have spent some money. Michael or Mark?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have. They're so close to not only breaking their club transfer record with a new signing, but this would be their 9th of this window. They have really backed Mark Robbins off the back of selling Victor Gyökeres for in excess of 20 million euros. They are close to agreeing a deal for Haji Wright, who is the striker currently at Antalyaspor, which is in Turkey. The medical is completed, so that is good news. That's going to cost them roughly 9 million euros. The other positive as far as Coventry are concerned, Gustavo Hamer, a lot of interest, still training as usual in the squad this weekend. They haven't lost him yet. OK, you've got about 20 seconds, Michael. Staying in the Midlands, Tom Brady getting involved. Football, but not as he knows it.
Yeah, he's invested in Birmingham City today. I know we've got to go more as we get it, but isn't it great to see this exposure for the EFL? We've had it with Wrexham as well, with the two owners, well, the two actors. So, yeah, great news for Birmingham. We've had a tough few years.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. And Darmish? Who's that? Lovely. We've got a Hoyland update coming at 7 o'clock. Sounds like it might be big. I don't even know what it is. I've just heard. So that's coming up after the break. Much more Sky Sports news. There's a 100 game going on. We'll update you with that and the rest of the sports news. See you in a moment.
Sky Sports News.
ProPlan Pet Supplements.